Great, colleagues, it's 2 o'clock and I see that all our speakers have joined, so we're going to stay punctual and we'll kick off. Welcome to our first Insight Exchange of the year on our dynamic population. For those of us who have not been here before, the Insight Exchange is a monthly series designed for planners, policymakers, and data users to demonstrate data tools, present real-world case studies, and share what's working and what's not. And the Strat Hub started this exchange series last year, June, and we held 6, I think, exchanges last year. So we're looking forward to starting this year's Insight Exchange series with a conversation around population data. The session will focus on how South Africa's official population estimates can be used to understand demographic change at a provincial and district level and inform planning and decision-making. It will highlight what the data enables, its limits, and how the National Strategic Hub is incorporating these insights into the State of Population dashboard.
Great, thanks very much, Rebecca, and welcome everybody. My name is Nick Graham from the National Strategic Hub, and I convene the Insight Exchange sessions. I'm very pleased to introduce our speakers this afternoon. I think those of you who work in the demographic space, for those of you who do, these speakers don't need any introduction, but for those who don't, I'll give a brief introduction to our first 2 speakers, Diego and Chantal. Diego Uterald is a Chief Director of Demography and Population Statistics at StatsSA, where his role includes the production of population estimates, demographic research outputs, as well as production of migration indicators. His interests lie in population dynamics, public health, as well as migration and development. He's the former co-chair of the UN Expert Group on International Migration Statistics, as well as a member of the Specialized Technical Group on International Migration of the African Union. He holds a MA in Sociology, MPhil in Regional Science, and a postgrad diploma in Demography and Population Studies. Chantal Muntri will be doing the bulk of the presentation today, and she's the director responsible for the mid-year population estimation and projections at StatsSA. In her current role, she leads the development of official population and household estimates and projections at national and subnational level. She holds a master's degree in demography and population studies from UKZN. Her work is grounded in demographic analysis with expertise in fertility, mortality, migration, reproductive health, HIV, and population aging. So definitely the experts in the room. And I would like to hand over to Chantal. If you want to pop up your presentation, you're welcome to share.
I'm going to basically run through the report in terms of our latest publication that is done by a very small team of people, Leseko Lefekani and Andisa Ramenyimi, that I'd like to thank as well for their participation in this project. So I think one of the first things I wanted to chat about is exactly why we need the mid-year estimates. And for those of us that actually already are using it, I'm sure we're familiar, but it's particularly for the fact that the census, which is a very extensive and expensive affair, occurs only every 10 years. And we do need information to do our planning on a more current basis and also to project for the future. So this is why we need the mid-year estimates. In terms of what it is used for, given the components of people in the room, I think they're quite familiar that the mid-year estimates is used for planning, particularly in terms of various departments, be it health, education, water affairs, social development. It's a broad range of departments, both private and public. It's also used for finance allocation in terms of the provincial equity share, where we do form part of the overall equitable share formula. It's used for benchmarking of surveys. It's used for a denominator in a number of indicators, for example, determining your immunization rate or your treatment levels or your enrollment rates. It's also used for a number of indicators in our various frameworks that people here might also be very familiar with, your SDGs, your NDP indicators, the Agenda 2063. A lot of the mid-year population estimates might form the denominator or even the numerator in some of these indicators. I also thought this would be a great opportunity, since there's a room of people who use our data, to also reiterate understanding the mid-year estimates as a series, right? So it's updated annually, and as such, each release is accompanied by a full series of data that's also updated. The update is generally due to maybe some improved methods, but mostly it's due to updated information that comes to light on an annual basis, particularly regarding fertility, mortality, migration, and even the age-sex structure of the population over time. The MIPE series over time is not compared to past series for the fact that it is updated with new information. It is internally used for benchmarking. A number of surveys at StatsSA is benchmarked on the mid-year estimates. And it uses a top-down approach. As you're aware, we published the national estimates in July, and we moved to provincial, then down to district, and we distribute our population in that manner. I thought it's also important to let people know our timeline in terms of the various releases we have as a media team. So like I've mentioned, in July, as many countries do, we release our population estimates in the midpoint of July at national and provincial level, and this is done by population group as well, by age and by sex, for the period 2002 up to 2025. Herein, we publish a report that also details the assumptions and the methodology. Thereafter, in September, we publish our district estimates, which is also a series from 2002 to 2025 by age and by sex. We follow up with short-term estimates used for planning, medium estimates as well. And thereafter, we follow up with our 9 district reports, which includes the narratives and pyramids, which I will get into. Following that, we produce long-term estimates at a national and provincial level up to 2066. We produce local municipal estimates as well as household estimates, all within the mid-year estimate series product. This product has been happening for a number of years in the making. It's only in the 2025 series that we have finalized and developed a final report. We've consulted with a number of departments, particularly CACTA and various other stakeholders, as what they would like to see in these district reports that have always been published merely as an Excel spreadsheet, but now we're including much more. So on your right, you'll see the detailed contents page of what exactly is included in our report. So for the MIPE 2025 series, we provide this publication. The presentation itself here today is going to focus particularly on the methodology, the assessment of our data, the structure of these reports. I wouldn't be able to go into all the data and indicators as there are 52 districts, right? So we will highlight some key statistics within this presentation. The entire MIPE or mid-year population estimates is developed via a cohort component method. Here, all I'm meaning to say is that we start with the base population, we simply add our births, we subtract our deaths, and then we introduce our net migrants in order to estimate the next population. That is the most simplistic view of what we refer to as the balancing equation in population estimation. But this is done over time and disaggregated at various levels and various indicators. So starting off with our base population at a district level for the cohort component method, we use 2001 as our base population, which is emanating from our census 2001 by age, sex, and obviously at the district level aligned to the 2021 boundaries. Future projections depend on this base because we apply the fertility rates in our assumptions to that population and move it forward. We apply our mortality rates. We also apply migration assumptions by age and by sex to that base population, and we move this population forward over time. Census is used in determining this base to some extent because we align our censuses over time as well to the data in terms of our fertility, mortality, and migration. So now coming to our first assumption, which is a key assumption, as South Africa is known to be the #1 driver for our growth is actually the births and our fertility. The births data emanates from the VRS, the recorded live births data that is published internally at StatsSA. Using this data and adjusting for completeness, we are able to develop age-specific fertility rates and moreover, a total fertility rate at a district level for the population age 15 to 49. Applying those fertility rates to the base population, we are able to determine the population age 0 to 4 and the births emanating for the next 5-year period. Similarly, mortality assumptions are also based on the McCord's data that is published within our vital registration units. This is the deaths data that we received that has information at a district level. These numbers are also adjusted for completeness, and it is turned into mortality rates, 8 specific mortality rates by sex that are applied in a life table approach to the population. And herein we are able to develop life expectancies and survival ratios such that we can estimate our population over time, estimate the deaths over time. And finally, we have migration assumptions. Here we are using census data, and we convert this information that's obtained from the census into migration rates. These age-specific rates by sex are applied to the base population over time, and this is how we estimate the migration over time that would automatically increase because it is a rate that is applied to a growing population over time. And here we have determined the surviving population within every period based on these 3 assumptions of fertility, mortality, and migration. So this slide I'm going to discuss in terms of our assessment and validation of the assumptions that we are using. We also consider the various limitations and the strengths of all the data sources that we use within our mid-year estimation process. Like I've mentioned before, vital registration is a key input data in terms of the distribution of the births and the deaths that is used in the mid-year estimates. But we also have other sources of data, such as the District Health Information System from the Department of Health that also collects information on births and deaths. We have the National Population Register that previously has been published by the MRC and is available within StatsSA as well to review at a national level. The immunization data is available at a district level, and we can use this to assess the level of children that is at each district. The IC data is looking at people age 18 and over at a DC level, and we access that information to assess our assumptions in terms of migration and even our assumptions of births and deaths. We use education data to look at the population specifically between the ages of 0 to 20 years of age. And of course, we use our census age and sex structure as a key input in terms of looking at how our population has changed over time based on these administrative data on fertility, mortality, and migration, and how it compares in terms of our age profile. So here's an example of what me and my team would be looking at once we've inputted our assumptions in terms of reviewing our age structure between Census 2011, as you can see on the left, and on your right, you can see this comparison to Census 22, and this is for the district of Umgungundlovu I'm using. And we can see the pattern is relatively similar for both the 2011 and the 22. This is a pattern we would be happy with in terms of our assumptions. Looking at some of the external sources of data that I've mentioned before for the Umgungundlovu district, particularly amongst males, when we're looking at the IC data, and this is the IC data for 2024, comparing the MIPE of 2024 based on this 2025 series, we can see the pattern of those. And as expected, you would expect that there'd be lower people registering to vote in the younger ages. And so the comparison does not fit, but at the older ages, it does. So we are happy with this pattern. Similarly, the number of learners that we see from the education data relative to what we see the population to be within that similar district. And again, with the immunization rate, representing not only the births that we see coming out of the DHIS and the recorded live birth assumptions, but the population over time. So the district estimates report that we are now publishing has key tabulation and figures that it didn't have before. And the purpose of that is so that we can provide easily accessible figures and tabulations for planners so that they can plan better at a more local level. They can also fill in the need for data and indicators at that level. And the information is imperative for current and future planning. And we provide narratives along with these key figures so that it could assist the user in terms of understanding population dynamics. Here again is some of the reports tabulations where we provide key descriptives in terms of the age profile, 0 to 14, 15 to 64, and 65 plus. We also provide the percentage to the province that it is located in, the percentage it contributes to the national figure, as well as the annual growth rate across the various districts. This is just an example for KZN. We provide sex distribution by percentage. As you can see for KZN, the distribution is fairly even, although there is a bias towards females representation as a percentage within the province. But we also provide yet another indicator known as the sex ratio to help people understand what is the sex ratio of each district relative to the other districts within the province. We also provide these sex ratios by age category as well. So mapping is a useful tool which allows people to visually engage with the population data. And we provided a number of maps in each of the district reports that highlights where the lows and the highs exist. The data that you see here in the maps is also available in tabulations. And we've also provided narratives to these maps and explanations and understanding that we believe helps the user in better understanding how population dynamics of fertility, mortality, and migration plays out to impact the population you see. We provide key population statistics on particular groups. For example, looking at where the working age population is the highest or the lowest. We're looking at total dependency ratios of looking at children and elderly relative to the working age, where this is the highest, for example, in Zululand at 71.1 children and elderly relative to 100 working adults, and where the lows are. So these maps might be very useful for planners in visually seeing what is happening within a particular district. We also provide data over a time series, as I mentioned before, between 2002 and 2025, so that a user can see the trend in data. Here's an example, for example, eThekwini, where we're looking at child dependency ratios. And you can clearly see that between 2012 and 2025, the child dependency ratio has declined. And this has much to do with the dynamics of fertility. Within a particular urban district like eThekwini, a city, where the TFR does fall, the number of births, despite being at a high level, the fertility rate is on the decline. But we also see that the old age dependency is on the incline, which points to people living longer, access to better health, education, employment, and we provide such narrative within the report. Other key population groups we look at is school-going age. Here you can see the highest and the lowest being Zululand again, which points to the number of children that are prevalent in Zululand. Looking at also the distribution of the voting age population. When we want to produce ballots, we make sure that we have sufficient ballots available within specific districts. This kind of information helps you understand where you'd want to send resources, as well as where you'd want to focus on planning in terms of where we're seeing the voting age population. Now back to the assumptions of fertility. One of the new indicators that we do provide within our report is the crude birth rate. Here we are able to look at the crude birth rate over time as it transitioned from the first period 11 to 16, 16 to 21, and 21 to 26. So one can look at not only where is the highest crude birth rates within the province is happening, but also over time, is this on the increase or is this on the decrease, and how best to plan. Our assumptions of mortality, here we are displaying the crude death rate over time as well across all of the districts. These are also again based on the McCord data that is available at StatsSA based on deaths registered. We provide population pyramids, and population pyramids hold a substantial amount of information of the demographic patterns on fertility, mortality, and even migration over time. So using KZN again as an example, we're looking at a more urban district of eThekwini, where you can see you have a narrow base and a bulge in the center that points to migration, the narrow base pointing to declined fertility over time. But here on your right, you can see Mkwanyakude district, which has a very wide base, and that points to a higher fertility rate, even in the more recent period, and a narrow base at the top. It doesn't necessarily have the high migration that we are seeing in eThekwini. So the population pyramid displays the age-sex profile in a manner that speaks to what has transpired over time within a particular district. Here we're also able to look at a population pyramid between 2002 and the more current one of 2025. Looking at the 2002 population pyramid, you can see again that in the past we had a much wider base. Over time, this base has narrowed quite significantly, pointing again for eThekwini to have a reduced total fertility rate. And whilst there has been a bulge, particularly within the more youthful age categories of 20 to 29, we're finding by this same bulge that was there in 2029 have aged forward since 2002 into 2025, and leading to a much larger bulge in the 25 to 40 age group. We also see the growing proportion of elderly due to higher life expectancy, access to services, higher unemployment, education. You have a growing elderly population that's also changed between 2002 and 2025. So these graphics assist the user in sort of understanding what dynamics has played out over time within a particular district. Some other key statistics that I thought would be useful would be to point out which is the most populous district within the whole of South Africa. Well, the most populous province being Gauteng, we find that the most populous district in the whole of South Africa is Johannesburg, and it holds 9.4% of the national total, with a figure of 5.9 million people. We provide the data that supports these indicators, and here is a display of some of the tabulations that exist in the report, the various districts within Gauteng over time, and the actual population number, so that people can make use of these figures. We also are able to depict the least populated district, which of course occurs within the Western Cape, particularly within the Northern Cape. And we provide the data also by sex. We display the percentage to the province and the percentage to the national. We provide the highest CBR, which can be depicted on a map that you can see visually. And here it shows that Alfred Nzo in the whole of South Africa has the highest crude birth rate, at 31 births per 1,000 people. For the lowest crude birth rate, not surprisingly, we find it in the city of Johannesburg, which is 13 births per 1,000 people. And though this is a very populous district, it is primarily overtaken by a large group of working age individuals and migrants coming in within the working age category. The highest crude death rate is found in Chris Hani district in the Eastern Cape, with 14.4 deaths per 1,000 people. And you can see this over time across the district in Eastern Cape. The lowest crude death rate is found in the city of Tshwane, with 6.6 deaths per 1,000 people. The highest old age dependency ratio can be found in the Eastern Cape in Amatola district, which is 21.7 elderly per 100 working age persons. We are even able to provide this information over time for the user. So you can see for Amatola district, how this has increased from 17.5 in 2012 to 21.7 by 2025. The highest total dependency ratio, which is the number of children and elderly per 100 working people, is found in the Eastern Cape in Alfred Nzo, right there in the top, in DC 44. The highest proportion of working age population, not surprisingly, is in the city of Johannesburg, and it's 72.8%. Here we are able to even distribute for you by population, by sex. So you can see it's 73.3% for males and 72.2% for females. The highest proportion of school-age population is in Alfred and Zor at 36.5%. And the highest proportion of voting age people is in the city of Johannesburg, which is 75.3%. These are just a few of the indicators. As indicated, our data is available in Excel, and should a user wish to create other indicators that we have not included, one is more than welcome to develop such. I've depicted here a screenshot of our current MIPE page where we have recently uploaded the reports, and you'll find them on the MIPE webpage. You can just go on the search engine and you can type in PO302 or mid-year population estimates, district estimates, and it should lead you to this page where you will not only be able to access the numerous number of spreadsheets with all our previous publications and releases, but along with the most recent reports that have been published for the MIPE 2025 series. And I thank you.
Thanks so much, Chantal. As you started speaking, the questions started flying in the chat, so there's a lot of interest in this product. I wanted to ask Diego if you wanted to come in at this point, maybe just to speak about the significance of these reports and where they sort of arrived from. Diego, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So as Statistics South Africa, we've always produced district estimates as part of our annual program, as Chantal showed on the timeline. And these have been made available as an Excel spreadsheet in 5-year age categories by sex. But I think there was a point where we had engagements with the KZN COGTA, and who indicated that there was a need for us to provide a tool which enabled users to see how to make use of this data, how to interpret it a little bit further, and how to see its value beyond the numbers. And so they suggested or recommended a series of indicators that we could produce for KZN. Obviously, we worked on that, and we identified that this would be quite valuable for the rest of the country as a whole, and so we developed this product nationally. So this product is, as Chantal has shown, in the shape of 9 provincial reports at a district level. We are releasing it for the first time this financial year, 25-26 in January, but in future years we'll be releasing it in November. I think that further engagement with users present here today, as well as other government departments, universities, NGOs, have culminated in us reaching this particular stage of being able to develop this report. Now, why would this be an important contribution to society, to planning, to local government, etc.? And I think that population dynamics goes beyond an interesting curiosity. I think that very often we will present these reports and most of the reaction will be, well, that's interesting, that's very nice. But I think that it's also very important to understand its value. I think population size is very, very determinant in terms of planning, identification of what resources are needed where. And of course, populations are not static and equitable concepts. Population changes differently in different places, and the populations have different structures in terms of males versus females, people in one age group to the other. If we are looking at a provincial level, if you're sitting in a provincial office, how population changes in one district compared to the others, or compared to the metro, if you're in a province with a metro, all have significant implications for whether we are going to build a hospital or whether we are going to build a school, and whether, you know, it should be positioned in this place or that place. So I hope that these 9 reports are an addition, a valuable addition for everyone's perspective, and I hope that it encourages people to make use of this even further than what the mid-year population estimates has been used up to now. And we look forward to receiving any feedback from yourselves and to see how further we can improve this. So I think I'll leave it right there, Nick.
Thanks very much, Diego. I think it's a really valuable addition to the suite of products that StatsSA offers. There are a number of questions about the product methodology, sources, etc., which I'm just going to hold until after we've finished the next 2 presentations. So please do keep your questions on the Q&A, and we will get to those. But in the meantime, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, who is Marisa Lombard. So Marisa, if you can get your presentation ready in the meantime. Marisa is a population analyst at the Western Cape Government Provincial Population Unit, or PPU, in the Department of Social Development. She has over 20 years experience in spatial demography and specializes in the use of spatial demographic data analysis, spatial planning, and GIS, with a current focus on applying population estimates, age, sex, structural analysis, and socio-demographic trend interpretation to inform national and provincial policy and planning. She has a strong interest in gender-responsive spatial analysis of everyday issues that shape our lives. Thanks very much, Marisa, for joining us. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, it might help if I put on the microphone. Let's see.
We just lost your presentation, Marisa. Yeah. See, it's coming. We got it. Yes, we got it.
You can hear me. Everything is good. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And it's good to be here. I know some people in the room, maybe. We've got a lot of audience today that I might not know. I'm presenting the Western Cape Provincial Population Unit today. So Chantal, she told a lot of her presentation went over a lot of detail today, right? And it's going to take me a while also myself working in the space to go through all that detail. So our experience today, maybe from the Western Cape population, is how do we take this data and how do we help then municipalities as well as your strategic hub information? We see it kind of is as kind of a support tool for us also. And so who is this population unit? Where do we fit in? So I'm going to talk today a little bit about it and just give you an idea if we're going to, yeah, I've got a bit of a delay, yes, sorry, starting, stop again, let's start, sorry. See if I can start again. Let's see if the presentation, if there's a delay, let's see if we're moving. Any suggestions on the moving of the slides? Okay, so let's try the second one. Okay. Okay, so let's see if we're moving. Yes, thank you. Okay, so I was thinking from the Western Cape, we also have users of population data, and we thought in our sphere, let's see what are they thinking about the strategic hub. Do they know about what's going on? Also on the population unit, just touching again, how do we fit in, maybe how I see it? Obviously, it's my view. And I'm not today here by myself. I'm also here with some other members of the team. Then also I'm looking at some of our products to show you how we use the population products and population data in products for development planning, and I'd give a little bit of a summary. So again, seeing this is kind of extra tools also in our toolbox. After COVID, we've learned about the toolbox and we've got extra tools to see how we take the original population data, different products, different ways of getting this information to the users. So to assist better planning for our clients effectively, that is the people on the ground. So starting off, I was looking at now the users who could give me some answers from the Western Cape. So I got a bit of information who's using the strategic hub. I also wanted to know what is the field. So we had a bit, I looked at our users, about 50% from the provincial sphere, about 42 from the local sphere, and they answered my questionnaire, about 7.1 from the district. So almost a third and 2/3 almost didn't know about it and didn't know about it. Some of them, most of them, I sent out the invite or the form to some of the planners. So a lot of planners gave interest, feedback, as well as then some analysts, even an HR professional working, in the region. Sometimes they have to do many things, planning, they must know what's going on, municipal managers and researchers. So I just wanted to get a feel like, what is the things they're looking at currently? Is my view also how I've used the platform, is that the same? We've explored mostly just all the options, and I'm sure we don't know everything, all the options and using of the tools that is there, and also registering for everything and how we can use it really. And I think also then reflecting this in the province, possibly then the province also don't know that this, as well as the PPU, other provincial population units, possibly also the national population unit, they know about this, but have they used it and how do we use it? So also we compared some data, we explored a bit, we looked at the dashboards, we copied and pasted. So in general, yeah, I think we're just starting to get to use the data. Let's see if I can move now to the next slide. And I apologize for all the detail. I think this is kind of a reflection where our minds are at for what is the population unit and how do we link now to using population data in a province, in regions, as you choose then. So the population unit is based on the population policy. And there's a policy in South Africa after 94, it was published in 98. And the reason was there was a recognition of apartheid and demography is important. There was a fast pace of change from the ex-homelands. And already in 98, we knew there was weak integration of population data into planning. And obviously then population detail also have to be kind of reported nationally, but also internationally, different forums and so on. So the main thing about the policy was to ensure the population dynamics are systematically integrated into development planning and decision making. And we're still trying to answer and get it there, of which your platform then a great addition and have more like a edge and a focus. So we want to know who's the people exactly that was already mentioned this morning. Who is the people we want to provide service to? Where's it changing? And yeah, what is this terms and the trends that we're seeing? So it's obviously we moved now towards a more rights-based and a development-orientated framework. We're not like originally China was one child policy, more like an authoritative way. We've got more like a rights-based purpose and orientation in the population policy. So we've got obviously, again, direct links to the main policies in South Africa, the NDP, strong conceptual alignment. We've got operational alignments in the policy, as well as spatial links then to the urban development framework, as well as then SPLUMA, the technical alignment, and then your sectoral plans. So you need to know for who you're planning. But we do struggle, and I think that's why reflecting all this text also, we do struggle in the population unit because we're not very visible. So part of it is because we don't have a specific, we're non-programmatic. We don't have a specific budget. We're sitting within Department of Social Development, DSD, and we have limited kind of cross-sector ownership. So the capacity also between provinces are different, and different provinces like KZN or Western Cape, Northern Cape, Free State, we operate a little bit different. We don't have the same staff, skills, the focus, and sometimes the main important thing is having a champion. right? Making understanding of population data, applying it to the different environments across different spheres, and not just in DSD, but lifting us up so that we can go wider, of which this platform, thank you very much, is also one place that promoting not just the Western Cape population unit, but all population unit functions. So coming to the functions there, it is based there on page 1441 of the policy, and you can have a look yourself, all the details, but mostly very detailed in terms of, or a bit detailed, promoting our function is promoting the use of population data, advocating for it, disseminating the information, for instance, MIPE, how we do it and get it to our users, make sure they implement it in the provincial plans. We do also our own analysis, trying to understand different topics better, especially on the provincial level. Sometimes, like the migration, we want to move a bit faster than what maybe Chantal and the team at demography, Diego's team really, look at migration. So sometimes they have to do it for the whole country and we have to wait, and sometimes we want to move a bit faster. So we can do certain things ourselves if you have the skills in the department. And we do also capacity building for other departments in the research. So just to focus on the exactly what we said, what is our areas? We look at population size, structure, distribution, all those things that you need for planning. The dynamics, obviously, it's coming from the deaths and the births, like Chantal also indicated, fertility, mortality, migration, urbanization, that big patterns of the things that is discussed today in all the media, getting the headlines. We're looking specifically at socioeconomic and service delivery, and that thing about the money and linking the budget, that is going to become more and more important for us, understanding that in relation to population. So just moving on, I'm giving you that themed areas because I want to give you some of the work we've done. I've showed some of this to the KZN think tank on population and urbanization, but I thought of, let me renew it a little bit and show you what we've recently done. Also showed this to the national population unit. So we do, sorry, I didn't indicate it, we do have a national population unit then, and then all the provinces, each province have their population unit, focusing obviously on their desired or their APP projects per year and focus area. So starting off, we always, for the Western Cape, together with Gauteng, urbanization is for us important. So this was a test for myself to see, can I do the urbanization trends? So this is for Diego also. Very clearly, we can do this, right? So what is our trend? And there was obviously changes in a little bit of the definitions, maybe big changes, but I wanted to look between the due type, EA type. When I combine it from 96 to 2002, what do we see in terms of urbanization? Yes, we can track this. And this is also something I looked on your platform that is missing, maybe things that we have to go deeper into, maybe suggestions from our side. So yeah, nothing surprising here. We move almost from a 53 to a 63 points. For me, it's not surprising because they always say, okay, Western Cape and Gauteng, the most urbanized provinces, if you read any kind of statistical publication. Free State, though, did surprise me. I wasn't aware of that, and I'm sure then when they're going to do this officially, you can double check and we can double check these totals. I just wanted to show this example, and then you can go lower to your districts. So we know we had boundary changes between 96 and 22. I just overlaid it because I wanted to get like a comparative view of the districts. So not going to go into detail, but very interesting that it follows almost the road infrastructure, right? The patterns. For me, it was very interesting here from Durbs, from eThekwini, coming up, going to Swaziland and going to Zimbabwe, going to Namibia. Almost it's following the road patterns. So maybe some interesting things we can look there of further research. Just another one, we can go lower. We're lucky in the Western Cape, our boundaries didn't change so much. So we can go and have a look of where urbanization then changed. So urbanization, if you remember, is the proportion of population living in an urban classified area. So for the urban classification, I used here StatsSA's classification. There might be different classifications in South Africa. Yeah, so I used the due code here. I was looking, this was just a small study, and I'm going to talk about West Coast a little bit as an example. We were looking at West Coast, and showing you it is a theme, and the provincial populations work that we look further, go also a little bit to the province or to the district and look at further patterns. So I'm showing you the urbanization connection to migration. So we do find then, obviously we know that urbanization is part of migration. So the interconnectedness between those is very clear, right? Because when we start looking at West Coast, that specific district, we know most people is coming from outside the country, but the second most is coming from the Eastern Cape. And I was interested to see now from where in the Eastern Cape. And I broke down all the municipalities and I checked it, but this is a combination map. And I know obviously history plays a role, and movement of people and work. And so I looked, now if I compare it to the old homelands, which areas then stands out that most people travel to the West Coast? So I got this highlight area, city to city trans movement, right? Buffalo City, East London, and that southern part of Transkei that I don't know well. I have to go and have a look a bit more. So obviously there's also more detail there, but just wanted to show the connection, some extra work that we're doing, giving you more ideas on migration. So with the NPU, the National Population Unit, with then consultants or academics, Prof. Nompo, Dr. Nompo, Prof. Faith, we looked in at population migration and sustainable development and human rights. And they had different workshops and courses in the provinces. And we had about 3 different rounds of information, and it was like 5-day trainings. It happens in KZN also, I think. So it assisted the people to introduce, to have a look at the migration factors into development planning, especially that we found that there was a lack of readily available migration data to integrate into existing planning systems and municipalities. So one of our last 10 sessions, my colleague Solomon attended the last session, and he listened very carefully what they said, and he then started with other colleagues also, they started doing then a district-specific migration report where they compared a few of these variables. I know it's many, I just wanted to put them all there, a bit of comparison and all the detail. And they compared it to what was already in the IDPs and so on, and what was missing. So I'm just showing you more detail that can be detail that we can use, themes, and going lower into the data and meaning. I know you also have your own vulnerability index. This is another one. This is specifically the Western Cape's socioeconomic index, and the formula that we use. It was developed already in 2011 by our director, Gavin Miller, and we applied it again because we've built that knowledge already in the department. We applied it again, and obviously we didn't have the economic kind of variables this time around, and then Solomon introduced, then we do have a combination of a household deprivation domain as well. So we've got 4 domains with different weights, and it's all written up and methodology and so on. So we wanted to be in control of, if someone asks us, who's the vulnerable people in the province, that we can also understand exactly where is our vulnerable districts, where's our vulnerable municipalities, and per household services, per education, we can split it up. So we're looking at the different municipalities, and yeah, I think you can read a bit more. We've got this indicator. Yeah, we wanted to base something that's evidence-based, that we understand exactly what's going into this, and not maybe a company creating it, or maybe a black box that we get a lot in the data domains that is out there. We wanted to know exactly. So we have this, yeah, and they're also looking at the other geographical areas like the police districts and health districts of mimicking it there as well. Just this is the main one where the MIPE fits in. So I also know of the denominators and the estimates from working in stats, but the past 8 years or so, we really tried to understand how the MIPE gets implemented in the planning structures of the province. So this is my view. Don't shoot the messenger, or you think maybe you disagree, but this is how I found it to be. We've got the MIPE, and you've got maybe now DDM and one plans, And the data perfectly, it helps us with the strategic planning on a macro top-down view, national, provincial, district, and it's great. You've got your one plans here, then you're going to go up to your IDPs, the local planning, and you get here between the spatial planning, the SDF's local planning. So I've spent the last 3 years or so a lot on the households and the connections there. I'm still learning and understanding this connection better, because what I found is this is the data and that's great what we're getting, and we're getting used to now the system and when and what. But where the reality connects with the model, we still need to understand that better and where the differences are. As you know, like we now have municipalities with their own drones, their own mapping systems, and they are many times with the service points, the households, the structures, they differ from the households. And I know we're waiting now for the local municipality estimates to be released towards March, April. And with that, the household totals. It will be great if we have more input and talk about feedback loops and channels where the households, and also, like you say, maybe we need more capacity building and education on the households, like everyone understand what is the methodology, where it comes from, and then how does this household go up to treasury? What does it affect? I think this is when someone gets early phone calls in the morning, when the transparency of this households, I think might be good to understand that better. So what I found that works well for us is, again, the population unit, capacity building, and so on. We're sharing presentation. We've got our own SharePoint. We've got in-person interactions. We've got a forum, and we share this information. We also then create our own files. That is a combination between the local, district, and provincial files that we combine for all the forecast time periods. That works well for me is the connection with Chantal, that we get like more or less a schedule to understand the release schedule to handle any kind of expectations. The single year long-term or the single year forecast, maybe more than 5 would be nice, but the single year is great for us, especially on education levels. I definitely found between the census period, the local municipality release on the last period obviously was 2021, and now I know, as we indicated before, the period is covered, but it is quite a long period between 21 and 25 to have a full release, right? The most important thing what was mentioned was it is not just a single year that gets represented. It's a series, and it's that forecast, especially that the spatial planners and planners need, that at least 4 years, 5 to 10 years forecast. And on the local level, sometimes that time frame with the provincial products is a bit difficult in timelines. The household, like I indicated, a bit more transparency methodology will be great. Also of when and what data goes to treasury, because there's a lot of questions around that. And the money stories. Dwelling structures, this is obviously developing. Understanding the dwelling and the household structures and land use and building counts, and that links to development on the ground, change, and urban and rural. So great if we can have the denominators understand exactly the health, education, water planning, treasury, what is housing market. That is some of the people that we interacted with, and it would have been great. It would be great if we can have longer series forecast. I know census provided then for us a 1 year identification, let's say of SAPs or the health education, but the series forecast, because we want to track changes over time and eventually want to build forecasts and predictive forecast models and scenarios, right? That's where we want to go. So my story here is just feedback loops will be great. Then a few last things. I think what I've missed was a bit of a gender responsive planning indicators. I'm going to just give you a few. We have the usual age structure, but you can also look at different views at age. This was females from the Western Cape, and I wanted to look at the generations. So what we found then that most of the generations sitting in the Western Cape as a province is between Gen Zs and Gen Ys or millennials. And if I'm correct, right? And it differs a little bit between the districts. And yeah, so you can get different views because stories and emotion kind of make people interested to start using your data in the development space. So this is just an idea. And then I think maybe some more gender things that I'm missing a bit. And we also have to work on this. Obviously, I think also teen pregnancy and GBV, yeah, that goes without saying. And then I'll stop here. This is also just using our data that is available for us. I heard also you mentioned, Chantal, the aging. For us, it's not so much a youth bulge. It is an aging story on our side. On the Western Cape, you can see here at the coast, our municipalities or districts that's in Namakwa here in Northern Cape, that's got, you can obviously, again, me saying obviously, okay. So the measures is you can use an age index, and you can look at how many people over 60 I use. You can use 65 and over, compared to if you have 100 children under the age of 15. So here we've got more older people. And here, some of our municipalities here, we've got more older people than young people. We've got more than 100 older people over the age of 60 for 100 children under 15. So that gives you also a measurement idea for aging here and there. In Limpopo, it's interesting. Bala area, maybe. So yeah, to give you an idea, in South Africa, it's 37. Here on the coast, it can go over 100. Yeah, so there's a lot of detail in centralized kind of planning from the top down that can be missed, but possibly then other actors also working in the field can assist. So just finishing up, I am not sure how much over the time I am. Just I gave you a feedback a little bit of our users. So many of our users also start using this, and myself also I have to explore more and see how we can use, how we can connect, learn from the strategic hub, also use it as a tool. For me personally, I think we as a population unit, we kind of redefining our role again in this space. The population policy and the different queries. What we know is that the question for population data and the integration thereof is not going to go away. It's just increasing. We've got fast-moving migration. We've got aging. So that questions, it's just going to become more and more. So we see ourselves maybe, or I see myself as being one of that people in the field, connecting the tools, connecting the data to in implementing it to policies and development on the ground. So we've got collaboration will be great. The products, when you've climbed a mountain, you only realize you've got many more mountains to climb, right? So, and we see it as tools and we learn from each other. There's different life cycles of products and of platforms that needs to be maintained. New things develop, you have to update things. I think also the move towards blended themes, things that we haven't added, the gender themes, maybe the climate, there's a few other more vulnerable groups that we can look at more. I think there's always room for deeper understanding of these different themed areas because that informed that higher level of strategic planning per specific area. And it's part of this forum, obviously, is also then part of building a more mature user base. And what I see for the future, certain things that's going to stay the same, but there's certain things that's pushing us in. It's not going to be business as usual, right? We said this after COVID, and we are still kind of struggling with this. I definitely think we can add a bit more other variables also, the basics plus more things. We see disruptions, we see the cost of living, climate adaptation. That all is going to push people to move and change and struggle, employment, different municipalities operating. Yeah, and then we've got this whole thing that I showed you at the bottom of the triangle, the move towards the connection between structures, building, population. So the move of synthetic data and models. So we have to have a bit of skin there in the game to understand it. So yeah, I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much. It was good. I hope this give you a bit of an idea of what we're doing. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Marie. So that was really fascinating to see how at the provincial level you sit as a sort of a bridge between the high level statistics and kind of the data that's needed for actual planning and implementation on the ground, and how you sort of creatively use the data you have as well as other data sources to create the products you have. So thanks very much for that input, and I'm sure there are going to be questions for you later. I want to introduce our final speaker in the program. So we're going to now be having a demonstration from Pamelo Mahamuza. So Pamelo is a senior data analyst at the National Strategic Hub. She is a colleague of mine, and refer to her as our data guru. She's the brains behind the dashboards. She puts them all together. She has a master's degree in advanced GIS and remote sensing with an added specialization in spatial statistics. So Pamelo is going to be demonstrating the state of population dashboard that's just been published live on the National Strategic Hub website. Rebecca is going to post a link to what Pamelo is going to be presenting now, if anybody wants to follow along. And effectively what on the dashboard is the statistics that Chantal has presented this morning have now been made into an interactive dashboard. So we can filter the data by district and province, a whole bunch of other things that you can interact with. So supplementary to the reports that StatsSA has presented using the same data that was presented. So Pamelo, if you're ready, can I hand over to you?
Yes, sure, Nick. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. I will do this. All right. Thank you. Good afternoon once more. And we're just before I start, we actually ran a poll in the chats to just ask who has actually visited the website. And thank you very much to the previous speaker who just showed us some of the statistics. So I think we need to work a little bit harder in making sure that we actually show the Straight Hub and how you can use it. So basics, when you go online, all you have to do is search for the National Strategic Hub and it will appear here. Let me move this right there. Once you have clicked onto it, you are met with our portal, and in the portal we have our data tools, which is our diagnostic profiles, our thematic dashboards, as well as some of our decision support tools. We also do have collaboration, which is currently where we are at, the Inside Exchange, our data ecosystem, as well as our data asset registry, which actually please visit our website because it will be live soon. So you can get a chance to see where all the data sets that we use are from, and how we actually went about it. But just quickly before we go into that, if you are keen on our Inside Exchanges, I know that there was a comment on the chat asking where the data is. So please always visit that so you can see when our next session is. You can also just look through our previous sessions. Our first one was state of migration, which is very full circle because the StatsSA colleagues are on the chat today. And when you go there, you can actually listen to the Inside Exchange, but also we do have a provocation that comes out. So everything that is discussed here today is packaged very neatly in a way that we would like to provoke thoughts, be it through certain commentary, through key things or key insights that some of the presenters might have made. So that's readily available. Another thing that is also available is the resources. So all the presentations and slides that you see will be uploaded per that specific Inside Exchange. So please visit that. And now I will be dealing with the 60% of people who say that they have not engaged with the National Strategic Hub. So our tools is set in two ways. We do have our diagnostic profiles. It is at a district level, provincial level, as well as a country overview. So this is more, if you want to look at high level country overview analysis, you can look at that. But with our district diagnostic profile, we do dive in to specific thematic areas, and I might have to add that population is at the forefront of all our analysis. So if you go to the district diagnostic profile, you'll get to see analysis from people development to some finances, audit data, and many more coming. But to now narrow it back to the states of population that we will be looking at, all you have to do is go yet again to our data tools dashboard, and then you'll go to the states of population. All you have to do is just click on view and the interactive dashboard will appear. Now, we do actually show much appreciation to Statistics SA for doing such great work. But I do believe that packaging stuff is very, very important. I know that some of us are very busy. So sometimes, as myself, I'm very lazy. So reading a report might not necessarily be as time efficient as I would like it to be. But also, we do like to acknowledge that Statistics SA does allow you to download all this data in a format of an Excel or CSV so that you can also work with this data yourself. So key things to note, our dashboards are put by theme. So the theme for this dashboard is state of population. If you want to go back, all you have to do is click the icon over there. As the presenter, Chantal, did mention, that for this specific dashboard, it is at a district level and the data is projected or rather estimated till 2035. And yeah, when StatsSA updates, we will try by all means to also keep updating. Another little housekeeping thing with the dashboards is that when working with data, you could choose to filter it according to two different ways. So if you know your district and you just want to go right to the point, you don't need to go to the province. You can just simply filter and you can choose. So for example, if you want to work with maybe eThekwini, which was part of what was presented, all you have to do is click on eThekwini, or wherever you'd like to do your analysis. Or ideally, if you would like to filter by province, all you have to do is go to the province tab. You choose your specific province. I'm biased, I'm from Gauteng, so I'm going to choose Gauteng. And then for the district, you can choose each and every one or one that you want to work with. So one thing that you see while I'm doing this filters, you'll see that all the visualization will filter to your specific province. So if you have not selected a district, please remember that it will show you the analysis, but it will give you according to ranking. So it will show, for example, if you're looking at population and we only said Gauteng, it will then show you from the highest to the lowest, being the city of Johannesburg and the West Rand. And that is the trend, that will follow throughout all the other visualizations. But if you want to be more specific and you just want to look at a specific area, so let's say you want to look at Ekurhuleni, our dashboard will then adjust to Ekurhuleni. So time series, very, very important. If you want to look at the growth, the total population trend of Ekurhuleni from 2000 till 2035, you can look at it over there. But also we do narrow it down to the current year. So please also just look at the date that is put here. We always try to make sure that it aligns with the current year. But for trend purposes, as mentioned, you can look at this one. We also do have analysis. Yet again, time series that looks at population growth rate. We also looked at this according to the different age categories between the ages of 0 and 4, which is usually regarded as children, between the ages of 15 and 64, which is usually regarded as our working class, and 65 plus, which is usually our elderly community, which we love. And in there, you can also look at the individual growth rate. Yet another reminder on this side, it is time series. So you'll see it from 2000 till 2035. But if you want to just narrow down to the current year, which is 2025, you can do so. You are not restricted to 2025. If you want to look at previous years, for example, you want to look at it at 2024, you do that and just give it a little bit of chance to load. Sorry, my internet is quite bad, but you'll then see that at the top, it will show you the current year that you have filtered to. So in keeping with the current times, which is 2025, we can also do some analysis. So we did look at some things such as population growth rate against the total population. We looked at things such as population per square kilometer to determine density. But also we did look at it. I love this one actually. We looked at it at population age groups and sex distribution. So in doing this, you can actually look at some of the key things like how is the population in 2000 and 2022 and how is it currently now. And I'm sure everyone can see that something happened over here to how it is currently now. So yeah, so this is very, very interactive. Please make use of it. We do have also, still keeping with the data, the second tab. If you want to actually browse around these tabs, if I may go down quickly, you can also click on it. So you don't necessarily need to follow the arrow, but basically the states of population that encompass three themes, which is size, structure, and dynamic. So currently we are on structure. And if you look at structure, that is where you will find key information yet again. Gauteng Ekurhuleni 2025, you look at things like sex ratio. A key thing I would like to point out is that the definitions. So we know that a lot of statistical analysis can be a bit tricky. So we have tried to simplify the definition as much as possible, but also for the sake of being transparent, the year and where the data source is always available. So next year, if you're still seeing 2025, please shoot me an email and tell me that I'm sleeping. 2026 needs to be updated, but that is how you can validate where our data sets are from. We also have, as mentioned, many visualization age dependencies. You can look at it by population and by different age groups. You can look at median age. You can look at the aging index and so forth. And then lastly, to tie everything up, I think as Chantal mentioned that population is multifaceted, if I may use that word, in a sense of there's also data from birth, death, as well as migration. So the last tab, which is dynamics, does focus on that. As I mentioned, our dashboard is interactive. So for example, with here, if you'd like to look at birth rates per thousand against death rates, all you have to do is just click on that little visual and you will just see how it has changed over time. But keep in mind of the year that is currently showing. And yeah, those are just some of the analysis you can look at: crude birth rate, crude death rate, and then with migration, you are also able to see how in migration, out migration has affected your specific area. So yeah, I hope that this was very, very easy for you to use. And just a reminder, if you want to go back, all you have to do is click, oh God, okay, apologies for that. But ideally, all you have to do is click onto the icon or this one, and it will take you back to the landing page. From there, you just go to explore our thematic dashboards and you can look at it. On the states of population, migration is a small portion of it. But if you'd like to delve deeper onto migration, you can also just visit the states of migration dashboard, which just gives you a little bit more information with some narratives provided there. So yes, I really hope you do visit our website, and I hope that the poll changes. I hope to see more people actually visiting it, but also very important, more feedback on how we can change that. So if you have any, almost denied some, but if you have any feedback for us, all you have to do is you can click on any of our dashboard, or if you want to learn about our data, and you can just shoot us an email, and yeah, we will try to meet your expectations. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Pamela. I don't think I've ever seen as many hearts and claps on a Inside Exchange presentation. So you obviously did a really great job and great promotion of the National Strategic Hub. So we're now entering the facilitated discussion part of the agenda. And in a second, I'm going to open the floor for questions. I just wanted to invite the speakers kind of to be in the room, as it were, so that they can respond to some of the questions. We have had a lot of questions in the chat and the Q&A already. So I'm going to kick off with some of the questions in the chat and direct them to some of the speakers. While I do, the attendees are very welcome to put up their hands if you have a burning question that you want to ask in person. It's always better if we can have a conversation. So please do raise your hands. The first question, I think I'm going to direct it to Diego. It's kind of a burning one, and there have been, I think, two or three questions in the chat, and it's a question I had as well. The mid-year population estimates and the Census 2022 are obviously very different products with different methodologies, as Chantal explained. Municipalities are struggling to reconcile the two when they have to do planning using the very detailed information that's available in Census 2022, but then reconcile the overall population numbers with the mid-year population estimates. Have you got any pointers or guidance as to how that reconciliation can be done or should be done in a kind of responsible way?
Yeah, so the population census is a cross-sectional data collection exercise which collects data on a wide variety of variables at one point in time. It has a very distinct methodology to population estimation. There's also the intervention of a post-enumeration survey to make adjustments. Whereas on the other hand, the mid-year population estimates through its cohort component methodology and through the population balancing that Chantal spoke about, uses established and independent administrative data sources in the intercensal period in order to create a time series. So if time series is what you want and comparison over time, but limited to population dynamics, limited to age group, sex, population group only at national level though, and the levels of geography that we provide, then the mid-year estimates is what you can and you should use. Even if it's something that you want to update looking into the future as a forward-looking time series, it should be what you want to use. But if you need something that is more in-depth, that looks at a variety of other variables and time-based comparison is not a priority for you, then you can use the population census. So I do understand that there are numerical differences between the two, and that this leads to a state of confusion between which numbers to use for planning purposes. But I think in the spirit that I indicated, that if your intention is to look at data over time and to make the comparisons over time and make forward-looking plans for which the census cannot provide future-looking data or year-on-year data, then the mid-year estimates is what you possibly should use.
Great, thanks, Diego. Just another question for Chantal. There was a suggestion from, I think it was Helen North. Could you talk to us a little bit about the publication schedule? You mentioned it briefly, but I think a few people might have missed it. The different products that you produce from the mid-year population estimate and when in the year they come. And I know that there's a lot of interest in the local municipal level data. So if you could just reiterate that, please. Sorry, you're on mute still, Chantal.
So the mid-year estimates, as most countries do it, are all published in July. So we as well in South Africa publish ours for the midpoint in the month of July. So you will generally see the new series being published in 2026 July. You can look forward to seeing the new mid-year estimates. And following that, we then publish at a district level in September. And we then have now introduced these DC reports that are also due to come out around about November, very soon after, so that my team can also prepare the narratives to come along. The local municipal estimates are also published by the same team. So we produce that around about February, and the household estimates are produced around about March. And the entire series for both the local, for all the estimates, population and household, are updated annually on our webpage and presented from July moving onwards. So we're trying, as Marissa has indicated, bearing in mind the planner's need for data. The short-term estimates come out soon after the district, and the medium term as well as the long-term estimates, to meet those kinds of deadlines for individuals. But as Diego has indicated, in the interim, there is never a space where there isn't data available. So an old series might be a year out of date, but it is data available until the new one is available to replace it.
Great, thanks very much, Chantal. And Marissa, I had a question for you. I mean, you obviously, as a provincial population unit, is responding to needs from local municipalities. And I'm interested to know what it is that the local municipalities are asking for from yourselves that they're not accessing from StatsSA directly. What sort of an additional analysis that do you do that is kind of demand driven, if you know what I mean, from the local level? What are people asking you to produce?
I think it depends on the period. If you're now between now the census and the MIP, we're going back now to the MIP. I think, like also in KZN, from where these questions are spreading, is exactly what they've seen is the different planners and consultants, they blending the methods between the census and the MIP, right? So then exactly that question, which one should we use? And then they choose certain municipality choose like a census timeline, they push it forward, and other use the MIP. So we try to also explain you have to decide now, and how do it links then to the provincial planning products. In the Western Cape, every province is a bit different and how they manage their planning schedules and who's managing it and so on, and to what it should align. So we have like a MERO and a PERO, Provincial Economic Review document, and a Municipal Economic Review document produced by Treasury, Provincial Treasury. So we produce some then combined estimates for the different districts or for municipalities. Some of these variables exactly that you indicated in the, let's say, sex ratios or dependencies, that we provide then combined. So it's a little bit different, I would say, for the districts. We haven't so much input to the one plans, more to the provincial departments and assisting them to see this is the new data, what does it mean if you go forward, our own department, and then the local, yes, what is the additional things? Maybe definitely, I would say from the provincial side, the urbanization, the pattern, the growth, the change. If we're going now there, exactly in that municipality, where? And then linking it to settlements also, to see in which settlements, of which CSIR has done a lot of work on the Green Book, but also looking for ourselves with our own eyes. If you know spatial planners, they want to see with their own eyes and also understand the data, to see exactly, okay, we agree that town, yes, there's a labor issue there, and yeah, it's linked to agriculture. So it's coming from this strategic high-level planning, implementing the patterns and the forecasts, and then we have the metro also. Remember, some of the metros, they also do their own forecasts, and we have to implement and see how the pattern looks there. So I'm just giving you some extra info there. But some of my colleagues can maybe also indicate, I can't think exactly the migration, urbanization. I think that is the main thing extra now. Then we kind of almost say we move now, we understand the data coming into the different systems. We have how the data flows. Now it's that smaller questions people start asking. Now, where's the change? Where do you expect the change going to happen? Let's build scenarios, that kind of thing. Thanks.
Great, thanks very much, Marissa. Colleagues on the floor, you have a wonderful opportunity to ask questions or to raise points for discussion, so please do raise your hands. As I'm following the chat as well, there's a technical issue that I have actually also had on the stated population dashboard. Pamela, I'm not sure if you can just quickly explain this issue of having to unselect specific districts in order to see all the provinces. You could maybe even share your screen, because I know that's a problem other people are going to have. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Will do. Thanks, Nick. Okay, so let me just go back to states of population. So because this dashboard is created on Power BI, unfortunately Power BI is a little finicky sometimes. So if anyone from Power BI is in the chat, please fix it. But ideally, what you have to do is, most of the times we do try to show the dashboard to a specific area. However, we do allow for you to select. So for example, if you go on states of population currently, you'll see that maybe it has been selected to Ekurhuleni, and you maybe want to look at eThekwini or any other place within the KZN province. All you have to do is unselect eThekwini, and the moment you do that, you will see that it will show you everything. Then you can start to select, and you can then select maybe the Free State, and then you select maybe Mangaung, for example, and you can then proceed to look at the analytics. When you're done and you want to look at a different province, all you have to do is just untick Mangaung, go back to province, and then you can select the KZN area. Or if you don't want to have to go back and forth between province and district, for example, just unselect province. Yet again, it will show you everything. Then you can just select your specific district. In some cases, it will have municipality. So if I can just quickly, maybe let's go to crime, where it will have municipal level data. Okay. Just zoom in. So that's just another functionality. You can also zoom in. But in this case, whereby currently it's showing Tshwane and you want to look at something else, or as mentioned, all you have to do is unselect. If you don't want to look at it also at province, unselect, and you solely want to look at the list of municipalities. Once everything is unselected, you can then go to your specific municipality. So this is also in order to make sure that you do not select multiple things at the time and then get an analysis for both. So for example, if specifically you are looking at Emfuleni, you can't select anywhere else because it will tell you that Emfuleni is in the Gauteng province, it's in Citibank district. Once you want to move to something else, you tick, you go to your desired place. I hope that clarified everything. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pamela. I thought that was just important to clarify so that people don't have that same mistake that I made. Just to go back to the questions in the Q&A, while I wait for hands, it's a very, very slow floor this afternoon. I think we've got a lot of passive passengers on the platform. But Diego, I hope this is not too sort of off topic, but there was a question about migration that piqued my interest, and I think I know the answer, but I'm going to give it to you as the expert. The question from Mohammed was, what third-party data sources do you use to estimate migration, and what methods do you apply to validate their accuracy and reliability?
Okay, so I think the gold standard when it comes to migration is our population census. I think it's the only source where nationally data is collected about where people have moved from and where they've moved to, and we can validate that against administrative sources like Luritz, which looks at the place of residence of a child compared to where the child goes to school, or in terms of the IEC data, where we can compare how people have changed their place of registration. But in terms of other sources of data, we are only now beginning to start producing migration estimates through other household surveys that we are involved in. We have had migration modules in the quarterly labor force survey in the past, but we are now inserting them in other surveys like the income and expenditure survey that was released last year, and also we have developed quite a comprehensive module for the continuous population survey, which is the next type of household survey method or vehicle, shall I call it, that the StatsSA will be using to run its household survey program. So to a large extent, we are still dependent on population census. We are having a meeting with Home Affairs later this week. Hopefully, these meetings can result in us getting access to data that the Department of Home Affairs collects, especially on international movement and on the types of permits that people are being given to come and reside in South Africa. And that will certainly help us a little bit in unpacking the migration part of the mid-year estimates a little bit further.
Great, thanks very much, Diego. And the last question to Chantal before I go to the hand from Zolani. There was a question, I think it was also from Mohammed, about the software that you use for the demographic projections. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, sure. So at a national level, we use the software called Spectrum, which is published by the UNAIDS on Having a Health website. It does allow us to produce single year population estimates and even single age population estimates. But at a provincial and a district level, we actually apply the cohort component method that emanates out of the spectrum model at a national level, and we do this in Excel. So this is developed in Excel, where we are adding on our age-specific fertility rates, mortality rates, and migration rates. So actually, it's a software that is not limited in terms of where will we be able to afford it? Will we be locked out at any point? So we don't face those risks in terms of reliance on another organization in terms of developing our own population estimates.
Great, thanks very much, Chantal. Okay, I'm going to go to the floor now. Zolani Zanyane, please go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Nick. Good afternoon to everyone who have joined this afternoon. Firstly, thanks to the National Strategic Hub, and I would invite the audience to interact with the website for information and data beyond the population statistics, because there is a lot of resources that are available within the National Strategic Hub. My question is to Chantal. It also links to the question, Nick, you posed to Marisa, but Western Cape is a different elephant altogether. In terms of the use of this data based on observation and experience by national and provincial departments, including also municipalities, in terms of resource allocation and planning, would you say there is an active use and appetite specifically engaging StatsSA in terms of ensuring that they use the correct data and they do get guidance in terms of their planning as well as resource allocation? Thanks a lot, Nick.
Sure.
Thanks, Zolani. So if I gathered the question correctly, it was to Marisa about whether there's an appetite for municipal and provincial and national government to use the StatsSA data. Is that correct? Or are you asking if they are in fact using the correct data, or they're using their own data? Is that the gist of the question?
Yes, the question is to Chantal, just
Okay.
on yes, from the side of StatsSA, whether the data that is generated by StatsSA is being used throughout government in terms of planning and informing resource allocation.
Okay, great, thanks. Chantal, you got the question.
Yeah. So we do work with a number of national departments, provincial departments, particularly when we're talking about resource distribution. We do work with provincial treasury that understand our data. We've engaged with them, and even their provincial treasury offices, we've visited and engaged with them, explaining our data and how we formulate it. But we are just merely a component to their own budget formula. but we do feed into the process of informing them about the population dynamics and currently what is the situation. So there is appetite for our data. We have had workshops. We do reach out to various stakeholders. We have a list of stakeholders who continually engage with us. Marissa is aware, and this is why I say we are trying to produce the short-term estimate so that planners can use it on a continual basis. But I do believe I still encounter instances where people from a number of departments are not aware of some of our products, and they are in the planning space. So there's still a lot of work that we can do to try and reach more people in terms of making them aware that there is this product that is so easily accessible on our website, where you can get the Excel spreadsheets. And I think this initiative was about, even for those without the abilities to create narratives or even tabulations or indicators, who have a limited knowledge in terms of demography and how to necessarily use these indicators, we've created this report to kind of make it a bit easier on everyday users in terms of how to use that information for planning purposes. There's always more that we can do to reach as many planners at very low levels to use our data that we can do, and we will continue to do that as part of StatsSA stakeholder relations moving forward. But there's generally a large appetite to access information about the country's demography so that we can provide sufficient schools, provide sufficient clinics, ensure that there's roads access. The work Marissa and her team are doing in the various provinces in terms of using this information to make sure that every individual is never left behind. So yeah, that's my long answer.
Thanks, Chantal. And maybe if I can just take advantage of the platform to answer from the National Strategic Hub perspective, because we interact with provinces and municipalities a lot. And particularly in the context of the IDP, we have seen a lot of sort of reliance on official, verified and authorized data. In fact, many of the provincial cogtors will not let the local municipalities use data that's not official statistics. And the official statistics are the ones published by StatsSA. So you will find on the National Strategic Hub the majority of the data we have, not all of it, because we do collate data sources from all over the place, but the majority of it is StatsSA, and certainly from our perspective, we see municipalities and provinces using that data. So that's just from our perspective. I did see a hand from Cliff Ferguson that's gone down. Cliff, do you want to come in again, or yeah?
Okay, thanks. Thank you. I think from a disaster management perspective, I think we're quite interested in, and especially from the National Disaster Management Centre side, is how the demographics work in floodline areas, danger zones, fire areas, and the population in those areas, because it's normally that populace that actually needs the assistance. And how would your databases be able to assist us in that? Thank you. Al?
Thanks, Cliff. So, I mean, I think your question is alluding to the sort of desire for demographics at a very fine grain scale. You know, the statistics we presented today is at a district level. And that's what the StatsSA product is producing. The local level demographic data is a big issue, and I think a lot of the questions in the chat have alluded to that. I mean, my perspective is that that's kind of outside of the purview of the products we're talking about today. But I mean, if there are any perspectives from the room, please do share how that gap can be filled, because it's, I mean, you're talking about not even a local municipal level data. You're talking about a sub-municipal level, or even, you know, floodlines that may cross municipal boundaries. Yeah, I'm not sure. Does anybody want to come in on that question? Because it is a burning one.
Nick, it's...
Yes,
goes it me or you?
Marissa, go ahead.
I like disaster management, understanding that, and with the population, that's also my interest. Obviously, the data for a specific purpose. So the data specifically for today was for strategic planning. You remember that triangle I presented. Then we've got data specifically for the spatial planning with a lot more detail. So I'm not sure your field, Dr. Ferguson, but now with the newer data, you've got open Department of Forestry, land use change, things like that. And obviously you've got model data also, the dwellings and the structures. Linking that, then that's the part that I said about the synthetic models and also the feedback loops towards Mike and Chantal and Diego, is how do we start lining that up better? So you are specifically linking to the spatial side, CSIR models, settlement estimates, things like that, that some work is already done. Maybe you've got people individually already working on it, but yeah, it's a very interesting field. And yeah, even on Esri, if you have got access to the GIS software, Esri's got some detail also on population and settlements and so on. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Marisa. I appreciate you framing it in terms of the levels of data use, because we have to appreciate that there are those multiple levels, and different data sets can be used for different things. Very often on this platform, we have municipal planners who are concerned with sub-municipal planning issues, and I think that's like almost an infinite need of data to an infinite level of detail that will never get satisfied. But it sparks for me maybe the need for another insight exchange on alternative data sources for sub-municipal place planning, because that issue does come up a lot. But as you say, it is for a specific purpose. Disaster planning is one of those. But when we're talking about sort of national policy making, the type of projections and things that the mid-year population estimates are producing is the sort of scale of granularity we're working. So thanks for framing it like that. I'm going to go to Mohammed Fadul, who's probably our most loyal Insight Exchange attendee and question asker. So Mohammed, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the chance. I'm just going to ask two questions. One is already on the chat. When is the South Africa going to be starting using the 2022 census data as a base population, and instead of the 2011? And the other thing, for the spectrum use for the South Africa for the population projection, I know that the spectrum comes with its own assumptions in terms of life table, mortality level. I'm not sure if you feed your own data to the spectrum, or you keep using the default data that comes with the spectrum to project the population for South Africa. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Mohammed. I don't know, Chantal or Diego, do you want to take that, Chantal?
Chantal, yeah.
So your first question about whether or not we are using the census data, Census 2022, we are using it as an input into the numerous number of data sources I have sort of explained that goes into developing our assumptions. In terms of the base, because this is a series and we have to develop the population at some time in the past, all the way moving into projecting into the future. So it's used, the 2001 census is actually used as our base so that we can then estimate our 2002, and we move all the way up until 2025 and we project further. So 2011 and 2022 are structures that we want to align ourselves with as we move forward, bearing in mind our birth registration, our death registration, migration in the country. The second question was related to the assumptions in the spectrum model. Yes, we do start off as, there are assumptions within the model, particularly around HIV, AIDS, and a life expectancy with and without treatment, but predominantly we are using our own assumptions of fertility, mortality, and migration that we feed into the system so that we develop our spectrum files at a national level. Yes, so the assumptions are not those of what is in spectrum as a default. It's the assumptions we've developed specifically for South Africa.
Great, thanks very much, Chantal. There was a hand from Nwabisa. Nwabisa, do you want to ask a question, or are you covered? You go ahead, Nwabisa.
Okay, thank you. I just want to check something. I think maybe taking a bit back, discussion about the data at a lower level than the district level. The data which is being presented here, as you said, it's at a district level. Municipalities, to them, they can make use of it in terms of planning. As I think there were a couple of comments on the chart that municipalities work at the ward-based level, and even the one for disaster management, you even going lower than the ward-based level because you want to do proper analysis in terms of the flood lines. I know that at some states, StatsSA used to do what you call building count, something like that, where they had that data set where you can have an idea in terms of the structures, which it was much better because one can be able to do estimates in terms of manual calculations based on that. Because with the building count, then you can see who's sitting on top of a flood line. But I'm not sure when last was it updated. I know that during census, the data was collected, but released to a certain level. Then I think, as you've also mentioned as the chairperson, that this issue of a data at a lower level, it keeps on cropping up in every session. How do we address the issue? Because those data sets, municipalities do have their own data set, but as it was mentioned earlier, it is not officially accepted, if I may put it like that, by StatsSA. Today, we're discussing census 2022 in 2026. Already a lot of development has happened, and now we need to develop IDPs for the next coming financial years. And still, we don't have the 2022 at a lower level, because when you are planning at a municipal space, the district data is not going to assist. So you need a lot more granular data. And whatever that municipalities are currently having, it is not accepted as an official data set. How do we bridge the gap? We need to find a way to address that. Municipalities are more the ones which are on the ground. However, they are not custodians for this data, but they have more better updated data, if I may put it like that. We need to find a way of bridging the gap. That is not going to be costly to the municipalities, because I know the process with StatsSA, municipalities must do household surveys, is quite costly, which is municipalities, especially rural ones, cannot afford it. So we need to find a way of addressing that gap.
Thanks very much for the question, Nwabisa. I mean, I've noted a couple of points here. But just a correction, today we're not talking about census 2022, we're talking about the mid-year population estimate 2025. And the outputs from that. So just to be clear on that. I did note your point about the StatsSA building count. I'm not familiar with that data set. I'm not sure if Chantal or Diego can speak to that at all. The census 2022 at a local level, I seem to recall there was an announcement that was coming soon. Diego or Chantal, could you maybe clarify on that one?
Well, census data was released all the way to local municipality level, and then towards the end of last year, I think it was October, we released a set of estimates at ward level, which covered population group, age, sex, and age group, sex, and population group. Yeah, those three variables for all wards across the country. This was a set of estimates. It's not a count. I just need to make that point. But that was released in October last year. And then I think the point you're making, Nick, is that we are talking today about the district estimates from the 2025 series of the mid-year estimates. But as you've alluded to and Chantal's alluded to, that in February, we will release local municipality estimates as well for the 2025 series. Where we're not able to help is going below municipality level and looking at main places, wards, even much smaller geographic units, for floodlines and things like that. And I think there are other geospatial techniques that are in existence that make use of our data, but have the ability to break this down into smaller units wherever necessary.
Great, thanks, Diego. I mean, for me, the discussion about more granular data on the numerous kind of measures that census uses. The only way you're going to solve that is to have more censuses, and we just can't afford to do that. So, I mean, I think that's a problem we're going to be stuck with. What I would like to hold a discussion with is are there alternatives we can use in the meantime? And Mabisa, you mentioned municipalities are doing their own surveys, household surveys. Yes, they are expensive, but there are also innovative methods that are being used, LiDAR surveys for building counts, population estimates from building counts, and I think that's a really worthwhile conversation to have. I think bashing StatsSA for not having a census every year is maybe not a productive way to proceed on that. We need to really work with what we've got, and also talk about how we can be innovative in the data that everybody needs. But thanks anyway for raising that. I see there is another question from Cliff Ferguson. Go ahead.
Yeah, apologies jutting in again, but I think it adds on to data science. I think the question is, how do we take economic data, because everybody's involved in the economy, and bring that to book as far as I think the movement of data is concerned, rather than going to count people. You'd probably find that just using our economic data, we could probably get much more about our population as well, and even the spending patterns. Is that ever thought of?
I have seen a number of people doing that, and I noticed that there's also a lot of use of nightlight surveys as well. That there's information there. So I think there are various people doing it. I can't speak for StatsSA. I don't think so. In the meantime, I do want to pick up on an interesting question that was asked by David Carpo in the chat. Does StatsSA produce error bounds on their population estimates to indicate a level of certainty? Chantal, are you able to answer that one?
Muted again, Chantal.
I'm muted. So the mid-year estimates in the use of the cohort component method that we are using, we do not create confidence intervals around our data, because we're creating one scenario. We're not creating many scenarios. Given that we are trying to move down to a district level of 52 districts, it's very difficult for us to do it in that way. So we are basically basing it on one assumption of births and one assumption of deaths and one assumption of migration rates. And so for that reason, we do not produce confidence intervals around the data. That being said, knowing very well that there's always a measure of error in terms of the births that we are suggesting or the deaths that we are suggesting, we can assume to have a margin of error around, I would say, around 2% up, 2% down, and we would be happy as a mid-year estimates team that we've estimated the population fairly well in terms of a record count.
Great, thanks very much, Chantal. That certainly makes sense to me. There's 5 minutes left on the time. I do want to leave some time for my colleague Rebecca to close up. We have time for one more question, if there is one. Last chance. Okay, I think we might have exhausted that. Can I ask the presenters or speakers if you want to make any final comments? Marisa, anything from you?
Good, and yes, we should just keep on using this data, and yeah, it is brilliant when you can get the hang on where it fits, and we on the lower level we're going to get understanding there more and more, I think. Thanks.
Thanks, Marisa. Diego, anything from you?
No, not really. There was one question on the user satisfaction survey from Velile. Just to mention that was a user-paid survey from the KZN province, and that's why it maybe occurred only as a once-off. We haven't really looked into that ever since. So I thought I'd just make that comment.
Great. Thanks, Diego. Chantal?
Look forward to our local municipal estimates that are coming out at the end of February. And yes, and just If there are colleagues who are not aware of the data that exists in MIPE, exists at StatsSA, please share.
Thanks very much, Chantal. Jongisa, I see your hand. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, so I'm going to have to pass over to my colleague, Rebecca, to close. Thanks.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, and that brings us to the end of our first Insight Exchange session of the year. Big thank you to our speakers, Chantal, Diego, Marisa, Pamelo, for bringing your expertise. It was great to get a clear understanding of what the StatsSA district reports contain and how they contribute to more meaningful and involved use of the population data and planning. Marisa, it was great to gain insight into how the provincial population units are facilitating these fit-for-purpose uses of population data by provincial and local government planners. And I think it helps kind of ignite the imagination of the different ways it can be used. And I think it's clear from the discussion that followed that people in various positions are grappling in an ongoing way with how to effectively and consistently use this population data. And here, Nick, your point around exploring alternative sources of data at a local level is an important one. So watch this space. Maybe we'll have a follow-up session on that. Yeah, as always, a big thanks to the StratHub team for all the behind-the-scenes work, both with the Insight Exchange offering and the dashboards that contribute towards it. And as always, and very importantly, a big thank you to all the participants for your contributions. We really are hoping that collectively we nurture these sessions to be a meaningful and ongoing conversation around the use of data in municipal planning and kind of continue to be a very generative, collaborative experience. Next up, we've got our agenda for the 3rd of March, and we'll be looking at road accident data. So watch this space. And as Pamelo so clearly highlighted, you can get all these resources and information on upcoming Insight Exchanges on the StratHub portal. And I think with that, we can close.